Okay, so I think we'll get started while there's still a few other participants join us. I'll start by introducing myself and the team. My name is Vedna Ramsaha, and I lead Common Premises globally. I saw a hand up. Naima? Okay. So I lead the Common Premises team globally, and I'm part of the country business strategy section. I'll hand over to Rodolfo, Gabriel, and Alex to introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rodolfo. I'm a colleague of Edna at DCO CBS. I work with data and reporting, and I'm supporting to develop the platform. Over.
Hello, I'm Alex. I'm also supporting the Common Premises project, working for the WFP.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gabrielle. I also supported on the development of the platform, and very happy to do the demo today of the Common Premises platform.
Okay. So what I want to start with is with this training, we're offering the same trainings. This is the second time. We'll have two more next this week and one next week. And for any members of your team that couldn't join today, they are more than welcome to join any of the others. The invites were shared, so there's no limit to who can attend and who cannot, and that's taking advantage of the working from home and the restrictions of online training. So Common Premises. Today what we will be going through on the agenda. Can we have the next one, please, Scam? Yeah. So on the agenda, we'll go through the efficiency agenda and to see where Common Premises is located in this whole reform. Where is it situated, actually? We'll give you an overview of Common Premises and some of the key concepts that are going around that we adopted. And then what is the country Common Premises plan? And then we'll take you to the platform demo. In between, we will be having a 10 minutes break. And if there are no other questions, if there's anything, I'd just suggest that we keep the questions to the end of a section so that we take all of them together. Can we move to the next one, please? Okay. So the efficiency agenda. And the next one. Yeah. So where is Common Premises situated? Why are we doing this? Where is it? I mean, what is its location as part of the reform? So in 2017-18, the UN went under a few reforms. You've heard of the peacekeeping reform, of the management reform, and of the development system reform. As part of the development system reform, we have the operations reform. So there's the programmatic part of the UNSCDF and the operations reform. And as part of this operations reform, we have the efficiency agenda. Actually, the efficiency agenda is the operations reform under the UN development system reform. Now, what is it exactly? We were mandated by the GA the GA set 4 targets that we were mandated to complete, which are on the left of the screen. And then we developed 3 enablers. By we, I mean the team, developed 3 enablers to sustain those 4 targets. So the first enabler, I'll go through the enablers first, and then we'll go through the targets. So the first enabler is mutual recognition. What we mean by mutual recognition implies is that agencies, and all this is in the context of the one UN and taking on services from each other. So in this context, mutual recognition implies that one agency has recognized the policies and procedures of another agency and has seen no risks to adopting these procedures and policies. Now, the mutual recognition statement has been signed by 21 UNSDG agencies, and there are some who will probably still be signing them. And so far, it is still a high-level document saying that WFP recognize the procedures and policies of UNDP. It's being worked out in more details. In some areas, it's easier, for example, procurement, but when it comes to HR or finance, it's a little bit more complicated. So it's yet to be operationalized. Our second enabler, the client satisfaction principles. Also in the context of buying and selling services to each other, agencies have agreed to establish a client satisfaction indicator, meaning that services are rated at least on one quality indicator. And after a certain period, usually on a yearly or bi-yearly basis, the feedback from clients are reviewed and in view of improving the quality of the services that are being provided. The third enabler, the costing and pricing principles, are actually to shed transparency on what is it that an agency is buying, when it is, what is it paying for when it's procuring a service from another agency. So basically bringing transparency to costing and pricing. Because as an agency, you could buy a service from WFP or from UNICEF, but then the prices are different. It's for you to be able to see exactly what you're getting in those prices and for you to make an informed decision of, oh, do I really need the whole package that WFP is providing to me, or can I go to UNICEF, which is maybe less and has a reduced package? So as you will see, these enablers, they enable the first target, the 4 targets. The first one is the business operation strategy. And you have all heard about the BOSS 2.0. The BOSS 2.0 axes on 6 service lines. And the goal of the BOS is to create economies of scale in services towards external and also internally in view of streamlining all our services at the UN level. And then from the BOSS, we go to the common back office. So the common back office is a scaling up, is an operationalization of the BOSS at a broader level. As the name suggests, the common back office implies having one common back office, location dependent, per country. So you have one back office providing the services instead of different agency providing the same services at a country level. And then we move one step higher, which is the global shared service centers. And the global, what I failed to mention is that the common back office now is currently being implemented. The phase 1 has started, so they will soon be starting phase 2. While for the business operations strategy, we have, I think, 124 bosses that have been signed up to now. Regarding the global shared service centers, a design has been proposed, surveys are being conducted, and it's still a work in progress, meaning that it will take some time to come. And then last but not least, why we're here today is for common premises. We've been mandated to reach 50% of common premises by 2021. And we're going to unpack this in this training and see how we're going to move towards that target. Can we go to the next one, please, Gab? Alex, the next one, the overview, the next one. Okay. So the target is to increase the proportion of UN common premises to 50% by 2021. First of all, what is a common premise? So a common premise by definition is a building that houses 2 or more agencies. And in parallel, we have the definition of a one UN house, which is a common premise, but also houses the office of the RCO. And de facto, there can only be one UN house per country. And what I want to clarify here is that the agenda, the SG's target, what we have been mandated by the member states regards common premises. The concept of one UN houses is very welcome at the capital level to have this solid, big one UN presence at the country level in the capital city of the country or in one of the main cities of the country. We should not, however, forget that the common premises agenda touches the UN presence in every city that we are present in. So it's not only about creating those big buildings in the capacity in the main cities. It's also about looking of how can agencies consolidate in the field, even in high-risk environments. If there are 10 staff members working for WFP and 5 for UNDP in a smaller town, how can they consolidate to become common premises? May I have the next one, please? So this is the official definition of common premises as stated by the task team on common premises. And you can go over it. It's also available on the website. But the 4 main key highlights of the definition is that common premises encourages cost efficiencies through reduction of operational cost, is actually the effective utilization of shared resources, enhance security, and is a unified presence at the national and subnational level. I won't go over this word in word, but we can share this document as well. To the next one, please. So why common premises? So in line with the definition of established by the task team on common premises, we've seen key areas of efficiency gain. One is rental cost. A consolidated place always in the long run comes up to a less rental. Utilities and maintenance cost. Interagency travel, fuel and vehicles, and that also regards time, because if agencies don't have to travel across the city to meet each other, staff members do save time. And ultimately security costs, because instead of paying for security costs for 5 or 7 compounds across the city, sure, there's a bigger crew at the common premise, but it is one. Quality-wise, we gain a lot from common premises. So one is the status of the UN in the country. There's always a good view of the status of the UN when you say, you know, there's this big UN presence, or there's even in a town, there's one place where you go to for the UN. Space optimization, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Quality of the working environment, because through Common Premises project, we do try to increase the quality of the working environment. Safety and security improvement in terms of renovations. Accessibility and inclusiveness, because through Common Premises project, we do try to add accessibility features to the building. The One UN culture, so agencies interact amongst themselves informally in the corridors. And that interaction also impacts on the collaboration in the program delivery. Now, apart from efficiency gains and quality gains, Common Premises is also an enabler for the business operations strategy and for the common back office, because being co-located in one building facilitates the delivery of services to our programs. Next one, please. Now, where are we at regarding Common Premises? We took this data from the UN SMS database, its main goal is about security, but we did get data about premises and some about personnel and offices. So as of today, we have 2,441 office buildings across the globe for the UN system. Out of those, we have 284 single premises. They are premises that are located in towns where there is only one UN agency present. So no way that we are going to be able to consolidate them. Then we come to common premises per se. We have 476 common premises, which represent 22%. And then we have the big green part. It should have been red instead of green. Single premises that need consolidation, 1,681 of them. And that's what we are working with. I mean, that's what we need to work with to consolidate into common premises. Apart from this, we've looked at two other indicators, because simply saying that you have 1,861 single premises is not enough to show the picture regarding premises. So from the data that we have currently, which I must say is going to be validated through the exercise we are doing, we can see that out of these, in those 476 premises, we have 45% of our personnel located. So there's already a big concentration in common premises. And secondly, the average number of UN entities, officers in common premises is 54%. By that, what we mean is that UNDP is at 80%. I mean, 80% of their officers are in common premises already, whereas FAO, for example, are at 11%. And I think UNFPA, UNICEF is at around 52%. So when you average it all, we are at 54%. The next one, please. Now, the task team on common premises. What is the task team on common premises? Where is it located? And what is its role with regards to this agenda? First of all, the UNSDG task team on common premises and facility services, as the task team is called, reports to the big task team. So they own, the task team owns the common premises agenda. Who are the task team? This task team has been functioning for some years already. And on the right, you can see the list of members, the list of agencies who are members of the task team on common premises. And here I want to point out that membership is not restricted on the task team on common premises. We do welcome members of other agencies who are not yet members of current members of the TTCP. Please write to me if you are in the team and your agency wants to join the TTCP. It's a work in progress. If you know about it, you can tell us. We are also working with agencies to bring more of the UNSDG agencies in the task team. What does the task team do? So, as you could see, it's an interagency task team. One, it provides guidance and tools for UN cities who wish to engage in a UN house or UN common premises project, whichever one, renovation, construction, relocation. There's a set of tools that have been developed by the TTCP, from setting up the office, how to calculate the office required space, and templates, MOUs, MOAs when entering into different kinds of agreements with landlords and interagency agreements and so on. So there's that part. There's that part of the guidance that's provided. Secondly, they're supposed to create strategies and efficiency of how to increase the number of common premises worldwide. And thirdly, the operational part. Usually countries which have a common premises project where several agencies are planning to co-locate and that require UNCT approval, requires also the review of the TTCP plus FS. So a case is submitted to the task team, and along with guidance that's provided along as the process of the project goes on, there's also a recommendation and approval process that the TTCP does. Can we go to the next one, please? Okay, so now that we know the players, what is it that is being done? What is the common premises strategy? What are we doing? I mean, what's the approach to increase the number of common premises globally? One, it's what we are doing now. Why you are here is to create the country common premises plan on the common premises platform. So as of today, we know there's nowhere where we have comprehensive premises data globally. I mean, it's there at the country level, but it's not there at the global level, and it's not uniform. So each country has recorded the information as they needed to. So the common premises platform was created with two objectives. One is to have a database of comprehensive premises data, and secondly, for countries to be able to work a country common premises plan on the platform and maintain it on the platform. We'll talk more in details about the plan throughout the training, but the idea is to have this blueprint on a platform which you work through to to increase or to progress the common premises agenda of your country. The second part, the yellow part, which is opposite, is about initiating and supporting common premises project. So through the platform, we report, we record, and we work the milestones of the project. But outside of it, there's an initiation of projects has to happen through discussions, and the support of common premises projects is provided through DCO and through the task team on common premises. Now, to help those two pillars, we know that one of the main issues of common premises is resources mobilization. So the task team on common premises, along with DCO, are working on resources mobilization strategy of seeing at how can a capital funding mechanism be put in place to aid countries with common premises projects. And the fourth part, the blue part, is through surveys, which I thank all of you who have replied to the surveys. It was very clear that there were two things that are lacking in the common premises area. One is what we're doing now and what we will keep doing, training. How do you set up common premises? So on that side, apart from the rollout training that we are providing, we're also developing a common premises training on the Staff College platform that will be made available to staff anywhere, and that should be launched by the end of November of this year. Then comes the part where we have an issue with technical expertise. There's always this thing that, we need to look for a project manager, we need to look for an architect, we need to look for an engineer. Very often, we've had recourse to UNOPS, and they helped where they could. But we're also looking at creating an on-call and LTA contract by region, whereby countries can avail themselves of these services readily and quickly. But that is coming in 2022. So this is, in a nutshell, the common premises strategy. The plan to initiate projects and to monitor projects. The support comes from DCO and TTCP to the extent possible, also from the project management, the training, and we are all keeping fingers crossed for the resources mobilization, because as much as we're fighting for it, we do not yet have that money in the accounts to share for projects. Go to 12, please. Now, what are the options for establishing common premises? The first one is relatively quick, relatively painless, and relatively low cost. And I'm stressing on the relative because it's compared to the other options. And it's actually doable quickly. It's it's consolidation within existing premises, whichever way we look at it. Two small premises joining in to make a common premise. So maybe an office has 5 people, another one has 15. There's a small space planning exercise that's done, and the place can accommodate 20 people. It's usually done at a bilateral level, whereby the agencies involved talk to each other and go for the consolidation. Then you have the part where space can be made in an existing common premise or UN house to accommodate another agency that is outside of the common premises right now. So we do encourage that type of projects because compared to the other option, it's, as of now, financially much more doable. The second one are government-provided rent-free buildings. So in this option, either the government builds a building for the UN or refurbishes an existing building for the UN. According to the UN specs, the government will always own that building, will always own that land, but it gives it to the UN for use either at a nominal fee or at zero rent. And that project is also usually worked out with the task team on common premises. The third option, funded new construction by the UN, or the UN buys a building, which happens in very few places. So agencies who have capital funding, not all of them do, also look at acquiring or building their own buildings in certain key locations that are beneficial to the agency or that makes sense to the agency. And in those instances, what we are encouraging is that agencies who do have the capacity actually team up to create a common premise instead of a single premise. The fourth option is the most common one because it's not everywhere that there's money or the government. It's the UN leased commercial buildings. Now, and that's an option that many of us have to look at. Because through the years, agencies have joined a city, a country, when it was needed. And when they joined, they were accommodated where they could be accommodated at that time. So we have a range of, some have benefited from free premises from the government as part of their host country agreements. Some are located in residential houses. Some are located in now very old buildings. Some are located in more than modern class A++ buildings. So, but the reality is, in many cities, and especially we see it in capital cities and big cities, the UN is scattered around the city. So here, what we are recommending is for agencies to get together and see how they can actually lease one building. So not to say that everybody has to be in one building, because we don't know if that's possible depending on where you are. What we do ask is that if there's a possibility of even 2, 3, 4 agencies leasing one building, please go for it, because you would be saving on security costs. There's a chance of getting a better rental rate because of the fact of going together, and the UN being a risk-free, is known as a risk-free tenant. The last option, the public-private partnership, has been an option that has been used in the past 10 years. In that option, usually what happens is the government gives land to the UN, and that's it. So the UN has to build their own building, and the UN system doesn't have the money to build that building. So what they do in that instance is they reach out through the government, asking the government to work with the developer to build the building for the UN according to UN specs. Here also, the building never belongs to the UN, but because the developer is building it on behalf, on behalf of the government for the UN agrees to pay the cost of the building over a period of time with some interest. So after that period, usually 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, depending, the building is then given to the UN free of rent. So it still belongs to the government. But then for the next 40, 50 years, the UN doesn't pay rent. Now, this is a very risky project, because for the period of time that the UN has to pay back the government, it is committed to a certain sum, regardless of the agency composition in that building. So if an agency has to pull out, the others have to up their payback portion. So there's always that risk, but it doesn't mean that it's not doable. Can we go to the next one, please? Now, common premises and UN SDGs. Common premises provides an opportunity for us as staff members to put it in our planning to actually be the examples of a few UN SDGs, mainly environmental sustainability and accessibility in UN buildings. So when we say this, the first thing to know is that the moment we reduce our built footprint, we are contributing to environmental sustainability. There's not even a question or measure. If you move from 500 square meter to 400, I think as staff members, as a team, as a country, we're already contributing to the UN SDGs. Apart from that, there's undertaking a renovation project, and at the planning stage, there's every possibility to implement measures such as water recycling, solar panels, friendly material, you name it. There are so many of features that can be made during the planning of a renovation. It's not going to increase the cost of the renovation that much. It can be part of that project. And we do want you to know that when you're doing a project, please take this into account. The same as accessibility. Now, the TTCP has worked with UNEP, the SUN project, to create sustainability guidelines, and they are shared for any common premises projects. They are very detailed, And they also provide the flexibility of any country adopting the menu that it can according to location. The second one is that the TTCP+FS has adopted the ADA, American Disability Act, and the International Building Codes, and therefore has created an international construction codes for office buildings. And we do recommend that for any renovation project to follow, it's chapter 6 in that it's a 500 page document, but chapter 6 is about ADA. So there are all the guidelines for all the features for disability in that document. So it's there for use. I go to the next one now. Okay, so this was the overview on common premises. We want to explore a few concepts before we move on to the platform that are key to understand how we record common premises and how we are counting and how we are reporting. So think about it, right? They've told us achieve 50% common premises by 2021, the UN system. So which agencies are included and which agencies are excluded in this criteria? So first of all UNDS agencies are included. Agencies that are not part of UN development system are not. Learning institutions have been excluded because of their specific functions and them always being with classrooms. The World Bank group opted out, and also the IMF. And peacekeeping is a special case regarding common premises. So peacekeeping missions cannot move. I mean, we don't expect the peacekeeping missions to move. But in some occasion, they can host another agency or agencies and become a common premise. So what we want to say by that, right? If you have WFP and the World Bank in a premise, it's a single premise. And that's how it's going to be reported. However, if you have a peacekeeping mission plus WFP, it's a common premises. We have the detailed list and the detail worked out of this for the agency and the office type in the manual that we're going to share with you in the next couple of days that outlines all the details of the exclusion criteria. The same goes for the office type. We are looking at office premises. So warehouses, guest houses, temporary project offices are not counted in the common premises agenda. However, the platform is a place to record all your premises. So please go ahead and record them if you wish to. It's not mandatory, so it's a good to have. Next one, please. Okay, here's the list of office types that we added. We'll also share it. We'll also share it with you in the manual. Sorry about this. We were still going through some edits. And you'll be able to see per agency and per office types. The next one, please. Okay. Now, a premises life cycle. What are the key stages in your premises, regardless if it's common or single? One, it all starts with an initiative. What is an initiative? An initiative is a discussion that's going on. We've had a few talks with the government and they want to give us a building. It's an initiative. WFP and UNDP are talking to create to move in together. It's an initiative. So we're also recording these discussions to understand what are the possibilities that are going on in the country. But that's an initiative, it's a discussion. The initiative becomes a project when certain key milestones have been reached, right? And based on the type of project, whether it's a government-given project, whether it's a leased rental, whether it's two agencies moving together, we have outlined for you in the manual when an initiative becomes a project. What are the key milestones that they have to reach to become a project? And then the project is implemented. There are all the steps, the approvals, the move, the construction, the refurbishment. The day the key is handed over to the UN, meaning that the UN is responsible for the building, is when this project becomes an active premise. So regardless of whether staff moves in 2 months from there, an active premises is when the building is handed over to the UN. And similarly, it remains active as long as the building is under the management of the UN, regardless if staff has moved out or not 10 years later. The moment the responsibility of the building is given to somebody else, the government, the developer, the landlord, whoever we give back the paper responsibility of the building to, it becomes an inactive premises. Well, inactive premises can come back to become active through projects or just through paperwork. But the important thing to note here that you can have an empty active premise with 0 occupants. Okay, the next one, please. This was, we've put it here because it was not very clear in certain countries and how we record. So as part of common premises, a compound is a common premise. And what is a compound? A compound is an enclosed plot of land where several buildings sit. Now, if you have a compound, you have an enclosed plot of land, and then you have 7 buildings. One of them is UNDP, one is WFP, one is UNICEF, one is ILO, and so on. You have 7 different agencies. That compound is a common premises, regardless if each of the buildings are single premises in themselves. So I know there are in some countries, and especially we've seen this in Panama and in a couple of others, where the buildings were recorded separately from the compound. Here we're recording the buildings and the compound. Okay. The next one, please. Okay. Here, calculating space needs. Space needs today are estimated. This is a preliminary calculation, estimated according to the CMP guidelines that were adopted by the TTCP plus FS. What does that mean? It means that there's a recommended area for each grade of staff, as you can see on the table on the left. And that composes the office area that's allocatable to a staff member. And then apart from that area, it's not, I mean, we don't only sit in the office area. There are a couple of other factors that we add to that office area to calculate the total area of what we need as an agency or as a project, because then we bring in the needs of every agency and it becomes the needs of the project. So the office area, we have a loss factor. It's for all the stairs, corridors, entries, and so on, main corridors. We have a factor for circulation, internal circulation. So once you get into a floor, inside the floor amongst the buildings, there's a percentage for ancillary areas. And here I want to point out that that percentage for ancillary area covers meeting rooms, printing rooms, little kitchenettes, and a lot of the required support spaces for the offices. And then we have a percentage for outer walls to calculate the total area. So there's a template that was, if some of you, I know many of you have seen it, but there's a template that works according to this formula that the TTCP has put together. Now, this is being replicated on the platform. Good news for you, we are getting more modern, so the platform does all the calculation for you, which we are happy about. But what we want to convey here, one is that there is a way to estimate space needs for any common premises and premises projects, right? And for premises, basta, because all the agencies have adopted this. So if I have 500 staff members, depending on the grades, I know approximately how much space I need to occupy. Secondly, and that's very clear, right? Those standards are not an entitlement. So these are designed as a maximum standard for office space for the various functions. So somebody cannot come to you and say, I am a D1, you gave me 18 meters square and I'm entitled to 19.2 meters square. No, it's approximate and it's not an entitlement. Now you will try not to put, for example, a D1 in a 9 meter square office, but you will also not put them in a 50 meter square office, however difficult that task is. And I'm sorry, we are, a lot of us here are OMT members, and that's one of our difficult tasks, but we do try to put that forward. Can we go to the next one? There's one last slide, and then we take your question.
Okay.
Okay. Can we go to 20? Okay. Now, I've put this here because this is something we just want you to know that's in the pipeline. And I'm sure it's a question that's in many of the operations team's mind. We're currently, because of the pandemic, most of us are working from home, and there's a slow comeback to the office, or procedures to come back to the office. Is it now? Is it we are in the second wave, third wave? I mean, we are
Did we lose you, Vedna? Vedna?
Can you hear us, Vedna?
We lost you. You're frozen in a very unflattering position.
Yes, I think she's frozen.
I'm sorry, my connection got cut. So I'll just ask Gabrielle or Alex to reshare.
Yeah.
And yeah, so regarding the Office of the Future, right? Our leases are coming up, or we are looking at efficiencies. We are thinking that maybe a hybrid model of work will be adopted. So this slide is there, thinking of the actual space calculations that you have. How is it that you could, I mean, how would the work be going on in the future? HLCM is also looking at it, and we're also looking at it to see what would be the new space guidelines. And I think now we'll just stop and take the questions. So somebody had a question. Somebody had a question?
Yes, this is Mohammed from UNDP.
Yes, Mohammed.
Yeah, on the space allocations, I mean, from UNDP here in Lebanon, we are moving to a new premises, which you mentioned rightly. It's like a hybrid model. So you have closed offices, you have also an open office. So given that we are in a COVID crisis, so what we are trying to do is like working remotely at the same time with a low capacity, 60% capacity working from the office. So people will rotate. If you work 3 days and then 2 days from home, rotational base. But this, the classic way of, distribution of spaces based on levels, how it will work when it is a hybrid office model. Over.
Okay. Okay. And then I'll take the one from Carla. Over to you,
Hi.
Carla.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Vedna. Thank you so much for the presentation. I have two questions. One on the calculation of space needs, the slide that you're showing now. You're saying that like when we look at the matrix, it accounts not only for office space but also for other common areas. So I was wondering if these common areas would include, for example, the cafeteria, the garage, the ground floor. You mentioned that everything is embedded now on the platform. And you also mentioned that there's a template. Are there like any particular guidelines, not just a template, but like, you know, a guiding document on how these principles are actually established? And then I had another question. Yes, the template I mentioned. Another question on the slide that you showed with regards to sustainability guidelines and also the ones on the American Disability Act. If you have these guidelines, it also would be very helpful for us to have them. Thank you. That's it from my side.
Okay. So I'll take Carla's questions first. We can share the sustainability guidelines and so on. It should be very soon be on the UNSDG website. But for now, we'll make sure it's shared to the main coordinators of the names that you provided to us. Now, regarding the templates, no, there is no guiding document. I mean, there's an explanation. There are 2 explanation sheets in the template to guide you, but there's no separate document. We could share that as well. And the first thing, the third, you asked, that was a good question regarding space needs. No, it doesn't. The percentages don't include garage because parking spots and garage are calculated separately. It's there, but it's calculated separately on the template. And a cafeteria is also excluded from those calculations. But like I said, I mean, I didn't go into a lot of details on the templates. It does tell you there is a list of facilities or support areas, and it tells you which ones are in the calculations and which ones you have to add on top of it. But I'll share that. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Now, Mohammed, regarding the hybrid, first of all, it's like we do not have guidelines as of yet, right? Because now each agency and each entity is working with the agency guidelines. But what we would recommend when you're working like this, right, on a twice a week, 3 times a week, is to look at it holistically. Who are the people who have to be in the office the same day? Who are the people that actually need a fixed space, right? An office. And I'm not sure if I got your question totally correct, but what you mean, if are you talking about more of a flexible work arrangement?
Yeah, both. It's more flexible working arrangement, and then in terms of office space, as I said, given the COVID crisis, second, financial sustainability, taking all this into consideration, as I said, okay, I mean, we are at advanced stage. Just we're trying to conclude lease agreement shortly, but it's going to be sent to TTCP also for approval, maybe next week. I mean, some agencies, UNDP, NFPA, and then UN Women, DC, and OPS going together to one building, but less in terms of space because of the hybrid working modality or the model that we are introducing. So I got you, but in terms of the calculation, we are struggling on how we develop our business case because there is only dedicated office space for RR, DRR, and heads of offices. The rest will be a common.
Okay, Mohammed, let's take this, let's have a meeting during the week or early next week and take this maybe offline.
Good.
Because it seems that you have a particular case here. Okay?
Yeah. Okay, good.
That's done.
So we'll send you an email.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, let's move to the next part. Gab, I can't see your screen. Do you
Really?
guys see the screen?
Yes, we can see the screen.
I'm going to
then
stop
it's not.
sharing and do it again. Let's see. Let me know. Now it should appear.
Mm-mm.
No?
No. No,
We're
but
on
it's okay.
slide, yeah, we're on slide 22 of the presentation.
Yeah, no, because I have it too. So
Okay. Can everybody else see it? You can write in the chat if not. Okay.
On my side, yes, for info.
Okay, thanks.
okay. So now we move into what we are doing actually. What is it that we are doing? As mentioned earlier when we were going through the general presentation, the aim now is for each country to have a country common premises plan. Along, if you have a premises project like Mohammed does, please go ahead with it. But that doesn't stop the implementation and the work on the ground. But what's needed is for each country to create a country common premises plan in the common premises platform. So what is the country common premises plan? I mean, its purpose is to assist country teams to make informed decisions about their real estate portfolio and advance the common premises agenda. What it consists of is a stocktake portion where you look at the situation you are in now. So the buildings you are in now, the leases that you have that may be expired, the number of people, and the projects that you may have. Maybe the government is planning to give you an office. So basically take stock of your present situation. And then when you have that information in a place and you can see all of it, we work with you on a real estate analysis and understand that, you know what, maybe in Bhutan, it makes sense to have a common premises project. And probably in Maldives, it doesn't make sense, depending on the situation in your country. But the goal is also to look at what makes sense financially, qualitatively, and to advance the common premises agenda. Once this is done, it means that we are identifying projects that could happen. We take, as an OMT, we take these projects to the UNCT and say, these are the projects that seem that we could have, or we could say also we don't have any, or we have one, or we have, say in Pakistan, we have one in Islamabad and we have one in another city, in Lahore, right? But it's looking at the country plan. So what can happen in each city in your country? Then the UNCT can look at that preliminary project and say that, well, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense, and agree to have one or two of these, or three, or whatever makes sense, or none, and well, at least one, and go back to the OMT, say, you know, I want a more detailed worked analysis to be done on it. So what happens, the OMT does the cost benefit analysis to really see if that that project makes sense. And then based on that cost benefit analysis, the UNCT decides whether they are going to implement this project or not. And if they do decide to implement this project, the key milestones of the project are recorded on the platform. And I really want to say it's the key milestone. We do not want you to work your project management on the platform, because I think you have it figured out. Anyway, it's different in every country. What we do want you to record on the platform in implementation are key steps, right? TTCP approval received, agency consensus received, design has started, construction has finished, we have moved in the building, etc. And what's very important in the platform is that when this project is finished, it's implemented, the UN is getting the keys or is moving in, this has to be recorded as a new premise in the platform. So we're always making the circle and understanding where we are in the country and our common premises or premises situation. As you can see, the CCPP is a blueprint of planned projects for implementation. And Alex and Gabriel are going to cover that part more later. A country common premises plan is never fixed, right? You create one. It's actually now that you're putting your information in the platform, that's the big lift. Because once you have that bulk of information, it's always there for you to adapt, to change a number here, to change an area there, to add an agency, to remove an agency. So that's easily done, and you can just pull out those reports during your common premises project. Now, that plan can be updated at any time. So the first go, you will have a plan, and then say 2 months later something happens, you can go and update it. I won't go through the versioning now because Alex and Gabriel have a slide later to explain to you exactly. But what's also important to know that at a minimum, we request that the plan is reviewed on a yearly basis. Now, if there's no changes, you could just put in that the plan is reviewed and there's no changes. Thank you, I've ticked my box. If there are changes, we just update the changes. Let's go to the next one, please. So as mentioned before, the common premises plan has 5 key areas, right? The stock take, the option identification, which is the real estate analysis. Then comes the cost benefit analysis, and then the planning and implementation. And this will be done with you throughout probably until the end of next year, in some countries earlier, in some countries later. But right now, we need to have all the information for all countries in the stock take portion by the end of February 2022, right? And you are the first group to go. I mean, you've been selected to be the first group to go. And here, what we are doing now with you is starting on the platform your stock take exercise, basically kicking off your country common premises plan and working the stock take portion. What does that entail? We'll go more into details, but it entails 1, verifying your existing premises. We have a list of buildings where the existing database says you exist, so we need to validate that. Secondly, for the buildings that are validated, we need the premises data, right? What is this premise about? What are the costs that you pay? Is there any planned investment? What are the contractual agreements? Thirdly, we're going to ask you to record any ongoing projects and initiatives that you have in the country. And lastly, calculate the space needs. Well, the platform calculates the space need. We ask you to enter the personnel numbers. So in a nutshell, this is what we are doing on the platform from now. Can we have the next one, please? So are there any questions now? Because right after this, we can have a 10 minutes break and then come back for the platform demonstrations. So do you guys have any questions? Nope. Well, I see the chat. Okay, so I'm speaking in terms of New York time here. We're 6:08. We'll resume at 6:20. Is that okay? So the session is going to be open. We'll come back at 6:20.
Thank
Luigi,
you.
that's a 5-minute snap, Luigi.
It's me making some more coffee.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay, so we'll see you in 10 minutes. Thank you, guys. Okay. Are you guys back?
Never left.
Never left.
Yes, when we're here.
Okay.
We are here.
Okay, so we move on to the next part, which is actually the stocktake portion and the platform. Now, you can go to the next one, Gab, to 27.
Here.
Okay. So the stocktake itself, as I mentioned before, it's looking at where you are actually. And on the platform, the structure on the platform is in three very distinct parts that we will be showing you. The first one is the background. And the background is more of the kickoff of your plan. So you'll be having a shell of a plan on the platform that we will be creating for you, meaning that your country will be there, the list of premises that we have from the existing database will be there, and some other data. In the background, the main coordinator of the plan, who we call the Common Premises Champion, actually writes a description, a little description of the situation in the country, and also is able to add the other people who would be working on the platform during the background. So then they save, it means the plan is kicked off. The country common premises plan is kicked off. The second part is a premises validation exercise. That is composed of two parts, right? The first part, you will see the list of existing premises that will appear on the platform. And you actually tick off, you will have to validate each and every one of them, whether they exist or not, and verify the address of those premises. We add the missing ones, and we inactivate the ones that are no longer there, but still are in the previous database where we got your data from. And then we'll be asking you to add the projects and initiatives that are ongoing in your country in that section. So two parts in premises validation. First, update the list of your premises. And secondly, input all the projects and initiatives going on in your country. The third part is what we call the premises attributes. So for all the premises that you validated in the premises validation section, the one that exists, will require data for the building. So what is the area of the building? Do you have planned investments in the building? What is the capacity of that building? And then we'll be asking you, who are the occupants of that building? By occupants, we mean UN agencies or offices, as we call them. So is it WFP, UNDP, and so on, who occupy those buildings? Once this is done, then we'll come to the roles in the next slide. Agency focal points will enter data of their agencies. So what is the agency's space requirements? What are they paying for that building? What are the contractual agreements they are under for that particular building? And then last, Gabrielle and Alex will take you through it on how to submit the plan for quality assurance and how do you actually publish the plan and say, wait, I've done my the stocktake exercise. So for the roles, as you can see, we have what we call a common premises champion or the general coordinator of the plan. Usually, we have one or two common premises champions in a country, And it's recommended that it is a joint effort between somebody from the RCO and somebody from the OMT. So their role mainly is to coordinate the data entry along the process. They kick off the plan and they enter the projects, initiatives, and some other data. We will show you which one. But it's with the understanding that the Common Premises Champion has an overview of what's going on as a coordinator. He or she sees that a more holistic perspective of what's going on in different cities. And the Common Premises Champion, well, is assisted, or we have what we call the one before last, the Common Premises Working Group Chair, who basically is of a more is a high level officer, is either an agency head or deputy head, who brings whatever needs to be done at the OMT level to the UNCT. So they monitor the plan at a high level. They don't enter any data, but they are there to provide this additional layer of decision making where it's needed. Then we have who we call the premises validation focal point. So that person is responsible to validate the existing premise, adds premises when not in the platform, and have a good record of the addresses of the premises. Ideally, this person is your DSS focal point. But we leave it to you whether somebody from a Common Premises Working Group works with a DSS focal point to make sure that all this information is in, or requests the DSS focal point to enter the data. That's totally something that I know it will be different in different countries, but just to mention that that has to be done in coordination with DSS. Then we have, as a role, the agency focal point. So the agency focal point enters data regarding its own agency. His or her own agency, sorry. Then we have the Common Premises Working Group member. So as part of Common Premises, as you saw in the email that was circulated to the RCs, we're asking for a Common Premises Working Group to be created. So those members are the ones who have also an overview, right? They can be the lead of a common premise or any other members, but their role is to enter those collective data of premises that are shared, right? So all in all, the Common Premises Champion has the ability to enter all the data, but it's not the main purpose or role of the Common Premises Champion. If in some countries it makes sense, in some it doesn't. But the ability is there, the flexibility is there on who can enter this data. And then the quality assurance person ensures data coherence, but we'll get into that in more details later. The next one, Gab. Okay. So again, I mean, this is a diagram flow that shows you that for the background, it's the Common Premises Champion. Then the premises validation focal point enters, validates the data, adds premises. The CPC or the agency focal point or the CPWG member enters projects and initiatives data. We go to premises attributes. Again, at the high level data, premises data, it's either the working group member or the champion because of the overview. Once the overview of the premises data is in there, then it goes to the agency focal point, or all of them could enter the detailed data on occupants. Okay, to the next one. So I'll hand over now to Gabrielle and Alex, who will take you through the platform.
Thank you very much, Venna. I'm going to share my screen very quickly. Let me know when you can see it. Up. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Great. So thank you very much. Now we are going to start the UN Info platform demo. Of course, there will be many information to digest, and you will have definitely several questions. It's totally normal. We will pause regularly to collect and answer your questions. And please know that, of course, aside from this training, you will have access to detailed videos on the platform and have access also to an exhaustive manual, which will recap everything you need to know about the platform. So first of all, before we enter into the detail of the platform, let's have a look at how the process of role assignments will work. The first step is to communicate the common premises champion's name, so the CPC names, to the DCO via email. I know most of you have already done that, and if you have not done so, please send the CPC names to the DCO. Then the CPC will need to register on UN Info. Next step is for the DCO, so us, to assign the CPC role on the platform. And finally, it will be the CPC duty to assign roles to other users, such as agency focal points, CPWG member, and so on. So concretely, we hand it over to the CPC when it comes to assign roles to all users on the platform. So concretely, how to do it? If we go to the platform now, the CPC will have access to this little field called users. He will be able to select the name of the user through this search box. Let's say I want to change the user rights of Gabrielle. He clicks on edit. Then you have all the information relative to Gabrielle. And we are going to play with the two below sections. The first one is permissions, and the second one is responsibilities. Let's start with permissions. There is no need to modify the region. Regarding the workspace, we need to select the country where Gabrielle will have right to enter data and so on. So let's select, for instance, Kyrgyzstan. And you need to choose the editor rights. As a CPC, I'm the only one who can be the admin per se. So I want the rest of the team to have editor rights, no reader rights, otherwise they won't be able to do anything, but really the editor rights. After, I need to choose the domain, where here it's pretty simple. It's the common premises editor. I click on save. And once it's saved, you will be able to see a new country below, so Kyrgyzstan, with the responsibility assigned to Gabrielle. To assign a responsibility, it's pretty straightforward. You just need to click on the drop-down here and assign the responsibility I want to give her, let's say agency focal point. After doing so, I just need to click on save. So to sum up, once we collect every CPC names, the DCO will centrally give the right to the CPC, and the CPC will be the one assigning the roles to other user, performing the task we just described, namely going to users, selecting the users, editing, and then playing on the permissions and responsibilities. Of course, if Gabrielle is given other permissions, it's not time to delete the previous permissions Gabrielle had. You just need to add permissions. So add a country where she is not yet editor, for instance, or add the responsibilities you want to give her. Following Following this first step, we can now have a look at the plan creation and access to the platform. So to do so, the first step is to log in into the platform, clicking on this link and entering the email and the password you have once you register into the platform. Then you will arrive on the dashboard page. It's time to pick the workspace, namely the country you will be working on. So let's say I want to work on the Lebanon for the purpose of the exercise. And once you click on the workspace, so either by selecting this drop-down or by selecting the drop-down on the left, here you cannot see it because I am on the super admin view, but you will also have the possibility to access your country on the left. So when you have selected the workspace, you will have access to all the plans created under Lebanon. To select only the common premises plan, you can click on common premises. And then you will see the different plans existing. If there is no plan, it means the plan has not been created yet. And so it will be created centrally, namely by DCO. To access the plan, it's time for you to click on Edit. And then you will find the 3 steps that I mentioned earlier. So if we had to do a quick recap on this particular process, how to access the platform and how to access the plan. The plan will be created centrally by DCO. So the line we saw here, country CP plan, is created centrally. Then the users enter UN info, chooses the workspace, see the plan created. So this is what we did. We click on Edit, and then we access to the plan. I'm going to pause here for a few seconds. Do you have any questions before we continue? Yeah, Saman.
Thank you, Alex. Just wanted to actually get a clarification of the start date and the end date. So you have mentioned here, I mean, example, it's Lebanon, the January 1st and the last day is 31st of December. So all the plans in this case, the same start date and the end date, or it has a different timeline based on the plan? What would be the way forward in a specific given country in Africa, for example? Just wanted to make sure that we are going to put the same start date and the end date if there is anything required from our side. Over.
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. This is a perfect transition to the topic we're going to address right now. So thank you. So now that we have gone through the how to access the CP plan, let's have a look at the different steps of the CP plan. As a brief introduction, as Venda mentioned, we have the background part, which includes Saman, the start date and end date you just mentioned. We also have the premise validation part that Gabriel will explain. And finally, we have the premise attribute part that we will go through together. So the stock take, as a brief recap, the stock take consists of creating an up-to-date database of UN premises by recording all existing UN premises and their attributes, such as physical attributes, contractual agreements, by recording all ongoing projects in the pipeline, by recording the space needs of the UN, and finally, by recording the financial data related to premises. And of course, you have different roles, as we mentioned, the CPC, the agency focal point, the CPWG chair, and so on. So now to your question, Saman, so let's have a look at the background part. Here, the only user who needs to do something is the CPC. There is only one action to be done from the CPC, which is to enter the country background, just here. This description should include any relevant information about the country, such as the size of the UNCT, such as the security level, and any other relevant detail. There is really no action needed on the other fields. You can see on the right of the screen an auto-generating plan ID number, which is the unique number of your plan. And then please note that the plans are set up on a yearly basis. And so the start date and end date are automatically generated. So all the plans will have the same start date and end date. And the following year, we will start again with new start dates and end dates. So after populating the country background, it's time to click on Save. And now perhaps to detail a bit the question on the date, on this page, you can see two blocks. On the left, you have the year 1. On the right, you have the year 2. On the year 1, so with the dates you have seen, so 1st January to end of year, the users will complete the plan, and you will have, of course, you can have different plan version possible within the year. You can modify the plan throughout the year. And on the year 2, we will create centrally a plan. So another line on the dashboard. When I say another line, it's another line like this one, country plan. And it will be just for year 2. And of course, for year 2, this new plan, all the data that you entered in year 1 will be pre-populated. So if, like Vena said earlier, if you need to update the plan, then it's perfect. You just need to update the few things you want to update. And if everything is perfect, then you don't need to update the plan, and you just click on the right buttons to submit the year 2 plan. So to sum up regarding the dates are auto-generated. Each year you will have a different plan that will be created centrally by DCO. And of course, we don't need to update to fill in everything and all the data again in the year 2 plan. You just need to update what you want to update. So now that we have filled in the country background here, only the CPC, we only need to enter the country background detail. You press on Save. And so the next step is to go to premise validation, of course. And so to go to premise validation, you can either click on next step here, or you can click on the step 2 premise validation. So before handing it over to Gabriel, who will present the premise validation, do you have any other question on what we just saw? And let me know, Saman, if my answer was not good enough for you.
I think Saman is fine. Are you? Yeah.
Great. So if there is no other question, pleasure. So if there is no other questions, I will hand it over to Gabriel, who will present the premise validation part.
Thank you. So I'll catch the screen. Can you all see my screen? Can you confirm?
Yeah, it's all good. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So as Alexandre and Vedna introduced the platform, and Alexandre just introduced the background step, we will go to the second step, which is the premises validation step. This step of the platform aims at identifying all UN premises in the country. So regarding the premises, so we will use a diagram to illustrate this step. Regarding the premises, 3 tasks are expected from the premises validation focal point. But one of the objectives of the premises validation step is also to add projects and initiatives, as Vedna mentioned earlier. This part is taken care of by 3 users: the agency focal point, the CPWG members, and the CPC. So we can start talking about the premises. Regarding the premises, 3 tasks are expected from the premises validation focal point. The first one is to validate pre-populated premises. The pre-populated premises are the ones that we can see here in the list. The second task is to add missing premises, and we will see after how using this button, Add Premises. The third task is to delete premises that were entered by mistake. So this was about the premises, but as we also mentioned, one of the tasks is to add projects and initiatives. And the task of those 3 users regarding this is to add projects and initiatives. Also using this button, we will see after. So now let's see what the premises validation focal point should do on this step. The first thing to do is the validation of pre-populated premises, as we saw on the diagram. The list of premises to be validated is this list, the ones we can see here. And let me just mention that it's written out of scope, but this will be solved in the next versions. So this list of premises to be validated is imported from the UN SMS database. To find the premises to check data for, the user can either scroll down and look for one premise, or use the search option here by premises name, like this. The data indicated in the existing premises should be completed if missing, or amended, corrected if it's erroneous. So if we open one of those premises, we can open this one. Our task as a premises validation focal point is to check the data or to complete the data. So we have to first go data field by data field. First, we should verify if the premises is in the correct city. If the city is not completed, we can add it in 2 ways. The first way is to click and to search in the drop-down menu. If the city you're looking for is not in the drop-down menu, there's another way. It's clicking on the Cannot Find Your City button and typing the name of the city here. We can choose one of those. Here, let me precise, since it's the first field that we're filling, that there's an asterisk here that indicates that the field is mandatory, and the ones without are optional. For example, the city is a mandatory field, but the status details is not a mandatory field. So we saw the city data field. The second data field is the compound. If the premises is part of a compound, it can be selected here. If the compound doesn't appear in the list, it can be entered clicking on Not Found in the List, entering it by hand, and this compound entered will appear for the next premises dropdowns. Next, add or modify the name of the premises as it is usually referred to. The name should be unique to the premises, and it can be entered by hand. Then the user should verify the address or modify it if necessary. The coordinates here will be automatically picked. You're able to refine those coordinates using the map function. So zooming, moving the pin, closing to have a more precise location. On the status field, on the status field, you can select active if the building is still under the purview of the UN. So this is regardless if UN staff is occupying the building currently or not. And select inactive here if the building is no longer belonging to the UN. On the status details field, you can enter any other details, dates, or reason associated with a change in status. Once all data has been entered and the premises has been declared active here on this dropdown, the premises validation focal point confirms the validity of the premises by approving it on the occupation approval field. This can be done by selecting approved here. And once approved, each premises should be saved, clicking on save. The delete button, this one, should only be used in case of premises added by mistake or in case of duplicates in the premises list. So once the data is complete and saved, as we did, the successfully validated premises will be saved and they will be, as we see here, marked with a check symbol. It means that all data has been completed. With the validation of all premises of all cities in the countries, those ones, the premises validation focal point has completed his or her part of the stock take exercise. So we did this part, validate pre-populated premises, and we will now go to the two others. Adding missing premises. So in addition to the validation of pre-populated premises, the role of the premises validation focal point is to add premises. This can be done by clicking on Add Premise and leaving here the face as a premise and completed the same data as we just saw, but for an added premises. So that's the second task of the premises validation focal point. The third one is to delete premises that were entered by mistake, and we saw it previously. It's to spot the ones that are duplicates or entered by mistake and click on delete here. So we've been through the tasks of the premises validation focal point. But in addition to the actions performed by the premises validation focal point, we saw that some other users, that the rest of the team, needed to add projects and initiatives as applicable. So to add projects and initiatives, the three users in charge should first click on Add a Premise. Then select the face between project and initiative here. Let's select a project. And then complete the data fields. Projects, let's maybe spend a bit more time on the difference between project and initiatives. Projects should be selected if a concrete milestone has been reached. And initiative when the project is still under discussion. For example, a discussion with the government for a building is an initiative, which will turn into a project when a building is identified and accepted by the UN. You can refer to Annex 1 of the manual for additional information on what consists a project or an initiative in and for different consolidation modalities. So once the phase selected between project and initiative, the user can complete the data fields. The fields to be completed are, as we can see, very similar to the ones we completed for premises. But however, there are a few additional fields to be completed when adding projects and initiatives. The first one that was added is the category of the project or initiative. This is a drop-down menu with some choices to be selected depending on the type of project, on the category. For some project categories, a source of funding field will appear. Here we can see it, where you will have to select the source of funding among the different choices, which can be government, UN, or a donor. A third field was added. It's the future action field. They can be indicated as a text, and it can be like signing the letter of interest, for example. And finally, any other relevant documents can be uploaded for initiatives or for projects, any additional documents. To finish the creation of the project or the initiative, it is now time to click on Create here on this blue button. We have not selected the city, so since it was a mandatory field, it's mandatory to complete. And the project name also, project name. Now we can create it. We can select the address also here. And the source of funding. There's a drop-down that will be modified later. So the data has been saved and we have created a project now. When data entry is ready for quality assurance check, that is something we will explain in details at the end of the presentation. It is time for the CPC to lock the entire step using this button here. To ease data verification, and you might have seen it inside, some intermediary locks are also available for the other users here. Now we have completed the premises validation step, and we can now move to the next step, that is the premises attributes, meaning for all the premises, projects, and initiatives that we tackled here, we will have to enter more detailed data in the premises attributes step. To go to the third step, you can either click on premises attributes here, or at the very end of the step, click on next step. So if you have any question on the premises validation step, I would be happy to answer. And otherwise, Alex will handle the third step, that is the premises attributes. Let me know, or maybe in the chat. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you, Gabriel. So let me still the screen, and we're going to start now to discuss the premise attributes part. So as you can see on the slide, the premise attributes part is composed of three main dimensions: the premise level data, the occupants data, and the contractual agreement data. So if I move to the platform, let me show you concretely how it goes. You have the premise level data, which is everything from description to the investment. You then have the occupants data, and the last one is the contractual agreement part. As you can see on the slide, each part of the premises attributes will be filled in by different users. The premise level data will be filled in by CPC and CPWG members. The occupants data, when it comes to verifying the occupant list, it will be done by the CPC or CPWG member. And when it comes to completing occupants data, it will be the agency focal point with potentially the help of CPC and CPWG members. And when it comes to contractual agreements, it will be CPC, CPWG members, and agency focal point. So now let's deep dive the premises level data. The premises level data is really the first part of the premises attributes field. As mentioned, the CPC and the CPWG member are responsible for filling in this part. First thing first, before entering the data, you need to select the premise, the project, or the initiative you want to enter data on. For the purpose of the training, let's say we want to enter data on this particular premise, Unifield post 7.4. Let's go through each of the fields. The first thing is to enter a description. It could include premises status, let's say long-term premises. It could include occupants, and it could include office types and any other relevant detail. Then you need to choose if the premise is government collocated. It means that the offices are located in a government facility. If it is the case, you can see a pop-up like a new field coming in, which is called government managed. And so the question here is to understand whether or not the government runs the maintenance of the building. If the government runs the maintenance of the building, then we are in the presence of a government managed premise. The next field is the premises space. Here we are speaking about entering the premises area in square meters, and it's about the gross area of the portions of the building occupied by the UN entities. So typically the area which is listed in the contract document, such as the leases. You also need to enter the premises capacity, which is the number of workstations in the portion of the building occupied by the UN entities. Then it's time to select the premise ownership situation. Here it can be a UN-owned premise. It can be a nominal lease, for instance. You have more detail of the different choices here in the manual. Next, we need to enter the restriction to host. And so you have a series of restriction available. And in case you select one restriction to host, you need to enter a restriction justification document. Please note that if a premise has a restriction to host, for instance, for security restriction or a contractual restriction, so if you enter the other restriction to host, you then need to add restriction details and then uploading the restriction justification document. The last information you need to fill in at premise level is the investment. Here the question is clear. Is there any planned investments for the next 7 years regarding this premise? If we select yes, you have a series of fields appearing. You need to enter the total investment, which is the mandatory field in case you select yes. And then if you have the detail available, you can enter the different fields, the different detail fields, such as the total investment is 100. It's composed of 50 of fire protection and 50 of furniture, for instance. Of course, if the total investment does not match the sum of the detailed investment, then a pop-up will appear. The last table, we will explain it a bit later, but it's not something you need to enter data on. It's just something which is automatically calculated based on the information pre-populated above. So with this, we just discussed the premise level data. As mentioned, CPC and CPWG member must fill in this information. Now let's have a look at the occupants level data. So the occupants level data is the field which appear below the premises level information. And so in this case of the premise we selected, unifill post 74, we have only one occupant which has been pre-populated by the UN SMS database. So the first step, as mentioned in this slide, is to verify the occupant list. To do so, you both need to have a look at what is below the add occupant part, and then you can adding occupants by clicking on this field. You need to select the organization, let's say IFAD, the name, let's say test, and then you can click on create. We just successfully added an occupant altogether. In case an occupant is not supposed or is no longer here or has nothing to do in the premise, you can delete an occupant by clicking on the delete button at the very end of the detailed occupant field. Then we are sure to delete the entity and we delete it. There is one very important nuance regarding the occupant part, which is we are here talking about the offices. So if let's say we have one premise with one IFAD office and two WFP offices, then there will be 3 occupants, not 2. We really count the number of occupants based on the number of offices. So concretely, which data do we need for each occupant? First thing first, the organization name and the name of the occupant, which should be uniquely recognizable because as you can see, you have the name here. So it's easier for data verification. Then you need to, in case of course you cannot find the entry, you can click on the button and you can enter the missing organization. Then you have the office type from the following drop down. Let's say we are in presence of a country office. We can enter the office space in square meter, being the gross area as per official records in agreements or MOAs or equivalent. And then we have the office capacity in number of workstation. Please note that for the last 2 fields, we are really talking about the occupied space and capacity of the individual occupant only, not of the entire premises, which has been filled in above, premise space, premise capacity. Then it's time to write a short description of the office. So this one is already pre-populated. So regional office located inside of a UN compound, 3rd floor of building A. We need to decide whether we need to tell whether the office is the common services manager, entering yes when the UN office provides the service of overseeing the facility management of the premise. Then in case of restriction to relocate, you need to select the one that applies to you. Let's say a security restriction. with no, let's say, no potential relocating options. In case you have a restriction to relocate, same as above, we are here required to upload a restriction justification document. And in case we select other, we have another restriction detail which that you need to populate, and that you in the same way as what we saw on the restriction to host. So provide detail regarding the other restriction. Then it's time to click on the current work modality. Are we currently on physical presence only, on a hybrid model, fully remote? And we need to enter the current number of desks per personnel. Here we are really talking about a number between 0 and 1, meaning that if I put 0.5 and I have 10 employees, then it means we have 5 desks for the 10 employees. Of course, the work modality are likely to change, so we also need to have this information in the future for physical presence, hybrid, or fully remote model. And you also need to enter the expected future number of desks per personnel. In the same way, if it's 0.5, then it means you have 5 desks for 10 people or 10 desks for 20 people, for instance. The next step is to enter the number of national and international personnel. And then you will see on the table below a detail of this number of national and international personnel per grade. On the first column, you have the space in square meter per number of personnel, per type, sorry, of grade. Then you have the current number of personnel, the estimated future number of personnel, and with the number of employees, we will be able to deduce on the right the current space need and the future space needs. Of course, if the current number of personnel, let's say we have 6 here, and we have 8 personnel in total above, 4 national and 4 international, you can see a pop-up arriving, ensure that the personnel number matches the previously entered data. So now that we have 8 personnel in this detailed table and 8 personnel above, we are all set. The interesting part is that you have, as a result, the required space based on the space per employees. And on the table below, you can find the required space based on the common areas. I'm sorry, based on the percentage of additional space needed for the support function. So if you need 15 to 30% of the square meters stated above for the common areas, 5 to 13% for interior circulation, 3% for miscellaneous function, then you need an area required for support function, which is automatically calculated here. So really on this one, there is no action needed. It's automatically derived from the information stated above. The last occupants level data to be filled in is the cost data. Here, we need to enter the current annual recurring cost allocated for the office. Rental rate, cleaning, garbage, and so on. This is the type of data we need in dollars. All the fields are generally mandatory, and so if you don't have the information or if there is no cost allocated to power supply for whichever reason, you need to enter 0. So we have went through the second part of the premises attribute level, the occupants data, where when it comes to verify the occupant list, the CPC and CPWG member needs to enter data. And when it's part to complete the occupants data fields, it's time for the agency focal point of each agency to fill in the data. And it can also be populated by the CPC or by the CPWG member. Now, let's have a look at the contractual agreement part. But before, I will just pause for 1 second to see whether you have any questions on what we just saw so far. Okay, so I'm going to go through the contractual agreement parts. So 3 stakeholders are mobilized here, the CPC, the CPWG member, and the agency focal point. Similarly to the above parts, we need, when it comes to enter contractual agreements, to have validated the list of all the occupants of the premise. Otherwise, when it comes to select the parties in the contractual agreement, we might miss a few occupants. If we are in the presence of a single premise, then it's time for the agency focal point to enter the data. If it's a common premises, it is recommended that the data is filled by either the CPWG member or the CPC. When we speak about contractual agreement, it can include leases, subleases, MOAs, MOUs, and please note that the agreement parties could be both UN and external occupants. Before diving into the fields detail, let us have a look at the 2 main types of agreements existing. If you look on the left of the slide, we have a premise with 4 occupants, the WFP, UNESCO, FAO, and 1 external entities. In this particular example, we have 2 types of agreement. The first one is what we call the parent agreement between the lead agency, here the WFP, and the lessor. Lessor, which can be either the government, which can be a commercial stakeholder. And then the second type of agreement is between the lead agency and the other occupant, in case typically of a sublease. So let's say a government rents an entire premises to the UN. It has one agreement between the government and the lead agency, the WFP. And then we have subleases between the WFP and other occupants. So now that we have clarified what is a parent agreement, it's highly recommended that you enter the parent agreement first. Because as you can see on the fields, we are going to ask the parent agreement when we fill in the contractual agreement part. So let's have a look to all the fields now. We have the name of the agreement, which will allow to uniquely identify the contract. It can be the title of the agreement, a date, it can include the parties. Then we have, as we discussed, the parent agreement. Here, there is no parent agreement that we entered before. So the result is NA. But when I will enter the parent agreement, I will have the option to click on the newly entered parent agreement. Concretely, the parent agreement entered will appear in this dropdown, while it's not yet the case because there is no agreement tied to this premises so far. Then you need to enter the agreement type, whether it's a standard lease, an MOU, or a MOA. You need to enter the agreement status, whether it's a draft agreement or a final agreement. The agreement number as per the agreement in itself, the lease start date, end date, and notice period. And finally, the rent versus market value. Here, the idea is to ask, do you know whether your rent is below market, at par with market, or above the market? Then it's time to enter the lessor name. In case you cannot find your organization, the organization that is the lessor, you need to populate the fields that just came in. And then you need to enter the lessee name. For lease services responsibilities, the question here is simple. For each of the services, who is responsible? Is it the lessor responsible for the utilities, the lessee? Is it a responsibility which is shared? Is it another occupant? Same question for everything, for building maintenance, for insurance, for the security, and so on. When you have finalized to enter everything regarding the contractual agreements, it's time to click and to drag the file or choose the contractual agreement to upload it in the platform. So now we have went through everything you need to know about the premises attribute part. As mentioned, it's I'm guessing it's a lot to take in. So just to reassure you that you will have access to, of course, this training, to dedicated videos, and to the manual, which will be exhaustive on everything we just discussed. I'm going to make a quick pause here. Do you have any question on what we've discussed so far? Yeah, Saman, go ahead.
Thank you, Alex. Just wanted to actually get some understanding on the investment that we just entered 100. I think it's 100 million, I guess. Okay, so just wanted to. I mean, basically, this 100 whatever that we're going to put it here is supposed to be like an estimation, right? We are not going to actually get the exact figures. I'm not really sure whether those figures are available with the entities. So just wanted to get understanding that whether we can actually get some estimation here or how should we do it. Over. Thank you.
I'll take that one, Alex. I can take that one. So what this is, right, is if countries or agencies have already a premise they are in, and then there's been a budget that's allocated to invest in upgrading the premises, so investments, right? So the total number that you put there is actually your budgeted estimate. It's not the exact number. If a year later or 2 years later, there is more detailed information regarding the breakdown, then you enter that. But if it's not available, we just are asking for the budgeted estimate. If there are no investments planned, nothing. So it's a no, nothing. If there are planned investments, it means that there will be an estimated budget attached to it. Is that okay, Saman?
Yes, Vedna, thank you. So I have another question actually just for the previous slides that Gabriela actually displayed. So here we are not only calculating or assessing the common premises in the capital city, but also we are looking at all the regions, correct? There are multiple common premises in the regions, especially in Ethiopia. I just wanted to see that there are so many. So basically, we have to calculate all of these into stock take analysis. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. Okay. Unfortunately, yes. I mean, unfortunately for now, but just be reminded, once you have this one-time exercise where all the premises are on the platform, the rest will always be just a minor update.
Okay, noted. Thank you, Vedna. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions before we move on to the next topic? Okay, great. So let's now have a look at the next slide of the document, which is the lock buttons. So concretely, Gabriel discussed about it a little bit regarding the premises validation part. As you can see on the platform, there is 3 layers of lock buttons. In the green part here on the slide, you can lock individual entities, so lock only one occupant. Then you have the ability to lock an entire section. When I say section, it's typically when you look at the premises attributes, let's lock all the occupants data, or let's lock all the contractual argument part. And finally, there is a third layer, which is the lock step button. Here you lock all the step and only the CPC is able to lock it. The impact of lock, you have several impacts of the lock button. The first one is, as like it seems logical, but when you lock an occupant, you lock an entity, you lock a section, then no one can enter data and modify the data you've entered. The unique way to do so is to unlock the occupant or unlock the section. And then when it comes to locking the entire step, this is what you can see on the right of the slide. The next step is to go through the QA. So typically, if the CPC lock a step, the quality insurance will receive a notification, and it's time for him or her to perform the quality insurance. So let's have a look at how it looks like in the platform. If we look at the premises attribute part, there is the big lock step. So once you have done that, you have locked all the premises attribute step. Then you have, for instance, the lock of a section, all occupants completed lock step. And finally, you have the, sorry for that. And finally, you have the lock of one unique entity. So lock occupant. Then what happens when something is locked? When the step is locked, more precisely. So all the users are going to perform data entry. The CPC will lock a step, and then the QA is notified and will check the data. He will have a few comments, namely will provide his feedback to the CPC and to the users. The CPC and the users are going to update the data, to lock again the step, and then the QA is notified again and checks the updates. Once the QA is confident about the data, it's time for him to mark current step as complete. So this is a button you can see at the end of each step. And once it is the case, the CPC will submit when the 3 steps, more precisely, are marked as complete. The CPC will then have the ability to publish the plan, which is this button. Here, I want to precise a bit, this is the right part of the slide. I want to precise a bit the role of the QA. So the QA should check if the data entered is coherent, like checking the description, spotting incoherence costs 10,000 billion in garbage maintenance, for instance, or checking the number of personnel, whether it makes sense or not. But of course, is not accountable for the data entered. It's just here to spot incoherence and ensuring the data is as solid as it could be. Who is the QA? No, is the next question, right? Who will do that? Well, concretely, for Group A countries, we have assigned a QA for each of the country. So typically, Bolivia, Kosovo will be the QA. Panama, it will be Belize, Uruguay. The QA for Uruguay will be Panama. I'm going to pause here. Do you have any questions on the log steps or on the QA role? Okay, so no question. So the next step is how will we operationalize everything, right? Here, this slide is just here to tell you that for the premises attributes, as you have seen, there is many data to enter because you need to enter for each premise, each project, each initiative, the relevant data. So we strongly advise you to send the list for the CPC, to send the list of required data to the teams to speed up the process. If you wait for finishing the background and the premise validation before entering premises attributes, then you might be a bit delayed because there is perhaps many data to collect. For the, of course, for the toolkit part, so you will have access to a data field snapshot, which is an Excel document gathering all UN info data fields, their type, the responsible. So basically an Excel version of the platform just as a reference. You will also have access to video trainings. Of course, this one is recorded, but you will also have specific 5-6 minutes videos on each part of the platform. And in the upcoming weeks, we're going to register them in 3 languages, English, French, and Spanish. And then you will have access to the manual that Vena mentioned will be sent to you in the upcoming days, where you will have really like the most detailed information about the platform to answer hopefully all of your questions. Now let's have a look at the calendar. If you want, Vena, do you want to take the floor on this one?
Yes. So for Group A countries, of which you are part of, we're actually looking at finishing this exercise towards the end of July. I know that in the pre-consultations you did tell us that 4 to 6 weeks, most of you are enough to complete the stock take portion. But if there are any issues, and I know 1 or 2 countries which are bigger and probably have a larger presence might need 1 week or 2 more, please do let us know. Now, let's go on the next one, the workshops, right? So as Alex mentioned, how is the support working? What are the next steps in this rollout? So we've done the training. We have the names of most of the common premises coordinators, and we're going to register them tomorrow or day after tomorrow. So once they are registered, we will also be creating the shells of the plans so that when you go to the platform, you see your plans there. Again, tomorrow, day after tomorrow. And it means that the platform will be ready for you to use. So the coordinators will then be able to go and add the other staff members according to the roles they are going to perform on the platform. And we will share with you, like Alex mentioned, the toolkit. Now, in addition to this, what we are proposing, and because it's good to have general sessions, but sometimes there's some situations in different countries that are different. So we will be giving you a list of slots, 30-minute slots, that if you need a support one-to-one workshop, you can just book one with us. So then we'll be able to help you actually guide you through the platform. The dates are there. Even I am not being able to read my screen properly, but we'll share it with you as well. Plus on a link where you could actually click and book that session, that one-to-one workshop session. Now it's on a first come first serve basis. So if Mauritania got the first slot, the slot wanted by Lebanon, just please accommodate. And if you're not able to find a slot, please do tell us as well. Apart from that, let us know if you have questions.
Hi, Vedna. This is Victoria from DSS. When you guys mentioned contractual agreements, you briefly touched upon security document, and it was not clear to me. Could you please go back and show me that again?
We don't have security documents in contractual agreements.
Yeah.
No.
So
which
that one.
Part,
I think
part
it
are you
was
referring to?
I think it was under contractual agreement.
Yeah, we are showing the contractual agreements.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, Alexander, I guess. Yeah, you mentioned one word about security document. I just want to ensure that I understood everything correctly.
So for the contractual agreement, it's the contract that you need to fill in.
Right.
And not there is no security.
Aren't you also referring to, for example, premises SRA security risk assessment?
Absolutely. So that's what I want to understand. Yes, Vendna, do you remember we were discussing that this portion should be taken out? So I just want to see exactly where do we stand it.
It's not there. So we initially thought that it could be uploaded, but it's been
as
removed.
You said that it okay, thank you so much. I just want to ensure that it has been removed.
Can you please show to Victoria on the premises validation, please?
Yes, normally I'm showing my
that. I mean, if they want to upload any other documents related to the premises, plans and so on, it's possible. But you will see that there is no request to upload any SRAs. So
okay.
Yeah,
okay.
And contractual
Perfect. I just
agreements,
wanted to ensure. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, contractual agreements are just leases and MOUs and MOAs.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's okay. So no references to SRM. Just want to clarify. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So no SRAs to be uploaded because as DSS clarified to us, the SRS are confidential, so they don't. DSS does not want to see the SRAs or SRMs as they're called now, RIGI, on the platform. So if it is needed, it will be kept with the security officers of the country, but not on the platform. Any other questions? I know we are a little bit over time. Nope. So let's go to the last part. The next steps, as I mentioned, looking at the training videos, starting, well, you could start as from in a couple of days to start working on the platform. We'll be sending you an email through your regional coordinators. I think you know them well, Saman, Sharing, Luigi, Kafa, Karine, and Irakli and Sukrob. So then you can start
You can run,
working.
but you can't hide.
Yeah. So Luigi is there with you at 5 a.m. He's there. And then, I mean, usually your first line of questions would be to them. If there's anything more, then, I mean, you have the slot with which we can which you can book so that we discuss, but you also have the regional coordinators who then bring any issues to the DCO headquarters. And last, so for UN Info, there's a UN Info help desk once you log in on the platform that could help you with the technical problems that you have on UN Info. If you have any additional problems or anything, you can contact us on dco.cbs.cp@un.org. We'll also share this address with you when we send the mail in a couple of days. Now that's, I mean, on our side, that's what we had. So anything else from any of you? And I do apologize for going over time. Nothing? Come on, guys. We're not asking for questions, but I'm happy that we're good. Okay, then. So thank you very much. If you have not done so already, I mean, we have most of the CPCs. Please do so. And we'll be sending you an email with all the material and everything in the next couple of days. And then you can start working on the platform. Thank you. Oh, Sharing has a question.
Sorry, Vedna, I was trying to unmute myself, but then somehow got stuck. I just wanted to request if, because right now colleagues may not have questions because they have not been really exposed to the platforms. So I believe while they do so, that's when they will come up with more questions. So maybe if we can have a similar session sometime mid-July so that we can help them with any kind of queries that they come up during the process.
Okay, yes, we'll see how to address that, Sharing, because for now we've set the workshops, but I think there will be some general questions that could be useful to other people as well. So we might have 1 or 2 sessions because of the time zones as an FAQ.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Luigi?
Yes, I was just wondering, us regional coordinators, will we have some sort of admin user access to UN Info or this portion of UN Info to assist, or do we purely function as some sort of relay point? Over.
No, you will have an access. Rodolfo has left for another call, but we'll reach out to you and you would be able. I don't think we'll be giving you editing rights. We don't, I mean, I don't have editing rights because we don't want to take the responsibility of touching countries' data, but we should be able to see where they are at. Yeah. Yeah.
That's understood. No, I also want to impress upon everyone here in the call. The process for data collection and data input lies with the agencies. They should really own the process. Over.
Yeah, because none of us, we will never take the responsibility of touching data when we don't know exactly what's going on in every country. But we do rely on you for providing the data and taking the responsibility as a country, well, as a country team, as an OMT for the data that is being provided.
But yeah, this was more from the perspective of, for example, user management. If colleague X needs access, that we can quickly grant them access.
Well, actually, the way it's done, right? To have access, a colleague should be registering on UN Info, right? And when you register on UN Info, you register under a workplace, so a country. We'll talk separately on how it's done for people who have to look at different countries. that's a separate group. But for the users, you are assigned to a country. So you register on UNInfo using your country as your workplace. We've shared those instructions with the common premises coordinators. We can reshare them. So then it's up to the common premises coordinator to decide what kind of role you can have, whether you are an editor or you're just a reader on the platform. And if you're an editor, which parts of data you're able to edit, just as Alex explained. It's something that we cannot take responsibility also because we don't know all the stuff. So we leave it to the country to understand who needs access. But anybody who needs access will need to register on UNInfo.
Okay, understood. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, guys. If there is nothing else, thank you very much for attending and for bearing with us and the extra time. And we'll have another similar training on Thursday. So any staff members who have not been able to attend this one, your colleagues, they're invited either on Thursday or Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye, Vedna.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.